Today we're going to talk about Nat and Tan. This is Coach Ware. I'll talk about terminology for these stunts. Again, these are basic defense alignment stunts up front. We'll get into some more advanced things as we progress through these videos. We'll also talk about, with this one, kind of my philosophy with the looping and the slanting, and also how you can manipulate your alignment and then modify the call if you need to. So the easiest way to teach it is that whatever you're calling Nat or Tan, your first letter in that, the N or the T, is designating who the slanter is. And then the last letter, the T or the N, determines who your looper is. Okay, so if we look at this first example, we've got a Nat. The nose is going to slant first, and then the tackle is going to loop. So what I taught my guys when it came to slanting and looping, the slanter's going immediately. And I always told the slanter, you're hitting that gap. You are bringing a move with you. You're not just slanting to slant. I'll have some video of some different moves to utilize when you're slanting. That's in my sled progression. I think that's a separate video that I'll put out. I also told him too, so we're a gap sound defense, and so the responsibility of this nose guard is he's got to get to the B gap and cover the B gap. Now, obviously, in a one technique, not as difficult to maybe get there, but sometimes crossing the face of two offensive linemen can be challenging. So what they were taught is if you can't get to this outside shoulder and get to your B gap, then when you are here, you need to make sure that as you're getting through that you're pressing to the B gap from A gap attack. So again, it just varies. We did a really good job of it. They knew, if I'm not getting there, I've got to get width as I get depth at the yard deep. As far as the looper goes, so I had a philosophy with this that'll pertain more when we're running weak side stunts, and then obviously it'll pertain with the tackle and the nose stunts. So for the looper, I tried a lot of different ways to work the timing of this. I watched a lot of different videos, Larry Johnson, all the good defensive line coaches. So what I've found that worked best, and just like a simple rule, is that anytime you have a gap between you and the person you're working your stunt with. So if we look between the tackle and the nose, we have the A gap. If we were running a stunt with the N and the tackle, there's no gap in between. So what I would tell this tackle is you have time to get to your loop. So I don't want you looping right away to avoid contact here, but also we're trying to deceive the offensive lineman. And so you don't want to just shoot to your loop automatically. So you could tell them steps. I found steps can be difficult. What I would tell them sometimes is to two-step it. So you're going to step inside foot and then press hard off the outside foot on step number 2 and then get into your loop. And that loop technique from the tackle here with that right foot, I kind of just taught almost like a flat lateral 45 step because I didn't want him getting depth. We're expecting this nose to make some penetration here so that he doesn't have to get depth into his step, and getting depth, messes up timing and then slows your pursuit to the play. If it was a no gap, we said that this is a more quick loop. So you're going almost immediately. So you may one step and then loop instead of taking your second step. And what they would maybe have to do in scenarios where the footwork doesn't match up, because we always step inside foot first. Your stagger foot is the first foot to move forward. We may cheat it, or we may actually even flip it in some cases, depending on the person. So that's something that would vary based on the player. We also tried other methods where the looper wasn't supposed to go until he could see the slanter in his peripheral vision. Um, if you've got different skill sets amongst your guys, I'd challenge you to just let them use what works best. And obviously, that's the makings of a good coach and a good teacher. Is not one method is going to be the end all for every person. So find what fits best for your players. All right, so we'll take that off there. All right, so the next one you got is your tan, and then it's pretty straightforward. So this is your tackle. He's going to slant. He's got to get to that A gap. Again, if he can't make it all the way to that A gap, he's going to press that near shoulder and get vertical. And then the nose is going to loop to the B gap. Okay, same philosophy, same idea with the steps. Your one step, your two step. So one step meaning that there's no gap between, two step that you have a gap. If you've got guys with quicker feet, it may be a few more steps, and then you may have to adjust the stagger foot a little bit. We would sometimes cheat it up in the stance as well. So again, pretty straightforward, nothing crazy. Linebackers are still going to be responsible for their same gaps, utilized for passing downs, also for run down. So, if you face an offensive line that really struggles to sort it out, it's a good stunt. And also, too, we love comboing blitzes with this. And as I go into some blitz combos in other videos, you'll take a look and see some of that. All right, so some other variations you can do to this basic stunt is manipulate the alignment of the interior too. And again, depending on if you're two-eye players or ones, just changes up how far they have to go in terms of their slant and their loops, which you can use that philosophy with the gaps. So we could do it from an odd front. Again, it's going to change the gap. So whatever gap that we were lined up in, traditionally, we would end up being responsible for that gap. And being a gap sound defense, they're just trading which gap they have. So if we were running the Nat, he's going A, and he's going to the weak A. And again, since he is close, there's no gap in between. He's taking one step and looping. So he's going to step with the outside foot first and then loop around. I know that's not sound technique when you're doing defensive line, but he can't step inside foot and then be expected to loop around that nose guard. So there's going to be things that are going to break your traditional techniques of what's sound and what's not. Okay, same thing would be if we were to run the tan. So he's slanting, he's looping. All right, and so based off the same philosophy here, we could go even, whichever version of your even would be for your defense. We predominantly did double threes. I'm not a huge fan of running this just because we've got two gaps opened up in the middle. You can always change it to say, hey, we're going to run that and tan, but when you slant and loop, you're going to be responsible for going A gaps instead of B gaps. And two, it also depends on your personnel. I've been fortunate in coaching that I've had athletic defensive linemen where a majority of them would be capable of running such stunt. To make it a little bit easier, you can always go from head up two techniques. Our even would never really have been a 2-eye. So again, it just depends on your defense, and I just love this defense, just how much you can manipulate and modify things to fit your personnel, but also to add a lot of different scheme to your defense. So one thing, though, that you want to be aware of is that, don't always run your stunts from untraditional alignment. So don't every time you're going to run your nat and tans be in an odd front. Don't always be in an even front when you're doing it. Make sure that you're doing it from a variety of different alignments so that you're not given tendencies as to what you're going to run. So that was a big thing our defensive coordinator did a really good job of, was making sure that we weren't giving away our defense based off of alignment or tendency. So you got to self scout and make sure that you're not giving these things away. So we'll take a look at some film. Watching these, I don't know that I'll have them from the different alignments, but just to give you a basic idea of the blit or the stunt, and then talk through the technique being used. All right, so we're going to get a nat here. Again, I didn't talk about this in the drawings, but with our nat and tan, an attached tight end isn't really going to change anything that we're doing with it. The only time where we may call it off is if they come out in ace, because our auto check at times, depending on the week, would be for those nose and tackle to play 3 techniques, and then the ends and sixes. So with this alignment here, there wouldn't be any change if this team was predominantly going to hit the backside. So if they were hitting backside run plays here, we may change the alignment of the nose guard. But again, it's all dependent on the week and the game plan and based off the offense. All right, so in this video, we're running a nat. So the nose is going to slant, tackle's looping. We'll watch it, break down technique, and talk about how they did in terms of their timing. So because we've got a gap split in these two, this tackle should be taking a couple steps upfield and then looping. Can't specifically recall the technique he used. I think early in the season, we were going based off peripheral. So when he saw this guy in his peripheral vision, that's when he was supposed to start into his loop. So we'll take a look. We'll watch the tackle first. Kind of steps, not really. Kind of feet are dead. So would have liked to seen him upfield more and then get into it. So again, difficult to be going away, and then both of the offensive linemen get up to the linebacker. So the saving grace on this is the nose does a great job of slanting. He beats the center. So we talked about this, is if he can't cross the face of this guard to get the B gap, he's got this seam here. So what he's taught is you have to at least beat and cross the face of the center and then work to your B gap as you're gaining depth. So he does a good job of that. He disrupts the puller. The end does a good job of setting the edge, and then we have the linebacker cleaning up here. So because the edge is set, it allows the nose to make a good play. And then we'll watch again real quick to see if the nose is bringing a move. So it looks like a dip and rip. Again, this is a scrimmage for us. So as the season progressed and as we drilled the sled progression and worked on the technique improved. All right, so we'll look at Nat again, just a different variation. This tackle does a better job in this video of taking his steps first and then getting into his loop. And then one of the biggest things we'll talk about, we'll watch on this one too, is when he is looping back around, making sure that he's staying tight to that gap and not veering too far where he's given up his gap alignment responsibility. So for this one, we'll go nose first and then look at the tackle. Again, this is your tan stunt, or my bad, this is the nat. Okay, so nose does a good job, and in this one, he crosses the face, but because it's a pass, he's going to continue to work to get to the B gap. Okay, so takes on both pullers, and because he does a good job, he actually slows these guys up to release to get into their screen block. So, offensive coaches and O-line coaches, you don't want this scenario when you're trying to run a screen. You want these linemen out in front, and because the nose does a good job of taking on two blockers and not allowing them up because of his slant technique, the screen's not there. Okay, watching the tackle on the loop, I think he does a much better job of taking steps forward first because he has that gap in between. Okay, so he's getting what we like about that is because he takes this step upfield, he's making this guy post set. Okay, so which could and then create the gap between the center and the guard. I know not for this scenario, but also could get him that when he gets to his slant, if he kicks 2 times, it might get him where his feet are together and give him a better opportunity to pave the way. Okay, so we'll watch his loop. So he does a good job of staying tight, and he does a good job of getting through that inside shoulder of the center trying to come, or the guard trying to come back. So one thing too that you can coach up is, like if many O-line coaches teach this when they're pulling their guards, is to grab cloth as they come around. And so that's how tight we want that loop to be, as you're looping around this slanter, grab his love handle, grab around his his waistline, and pull yourself through the gap that you're supposed to get to. I know that that's not really realistic, but we like to over exaggerate and then hope for somewhere in between. So again, he does a good job of staying. He fights the handoff. I know it's a screenplay, so he reads it a bit late, but I'll take the technique there. Okay, so here we go. Take a look at a tan. We'll talk through it. I believe so. This is a scrimmage game. So again, we're not always running stuff perfect. So it gives good opportunity to talk about corrections on the technique that they use. So with the tan, the tackle is going to slant. He's got to get to A gap. Nose is going to loop. Got to get to B gap. We talked about the different mindset if he can't quite cross all the way over. So we'll look at the slanter first, then we'll look at the looper and talk through how they did. Okay, so anytime slanting, you're bringing a move with you. And off the start, I don't love his alignment. I don't want him to cheat to give it away. So again, another thing you don't want to do is give away what you're going to run based off of alignment, which we talked about with even and odd. But even still, like if he's going to run that and he ends up being more head up than he normally is, it's a giveaway. So here I'd like him a little bit tighter to the outside shoulder of the guard. Okay, and the thing, if we watch him too, he's coming flat. So he's not really gaining a whole lot of ground. That's not bad. And he's working to that A gap. Would like to see him more to the outside shoulder of that center and then continue to fight hands. And let's see, does he pull the guard? Doesn't really pull the guard, so it makes it easy for them to pass off. And we could blame the tackle here, but we'll watch this looper, and the looper never really sells the upfield too much. So again, he's got a gap. He's got time. He needs to have this down to a count, a step, or when he sees him in his peripheral vision. So we'll watch the nose. The nose one steps and goes. So this should be more of an upfield rush to get the offensive lineman off on their blocking here. So this makes it really simple for them to pass off. And then the nose does do a good job of staying true to the gap and fighting the outside shoulder and gets a bit washed up field. So again, we just want to make sure that we sell that upfield part first. Okay,